When it comes to emergency events in the winter, one of the biggest things people really need to worry about is the cold. There are lots of ways of addressing that problem, and one of the most popular is to burn wood to keep yourself warm. But what exactly does that mean? What kind of tools do you need to get the wood? What type of stove do you need to burn the wood in? In this video, we're going to talk specifically about how to procure firewood. If this isn't something that you've done in the past, but it's a plan for your future, you really need to give it some thought ahead of time. I've been burning firewood to heat my home as the primary source of heating for the past 2 decades. It's something I have a lot of experience in, and you might be surprised about how few tools you actually need in order to get the firewood. There are people all over the internet excited to tell you which tools you absolutely need in order to burn firewood. I'm here to tell you not only what you do need, but also what you don't need and what the bare minimum is to get by on. Because in every emergency situation, it's critical to know how to make the best out of what you have.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now waiting, better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything.
Hey everybody, this is Praxis. Up on the hill you can see my house, and coming out of the chimney of that house I bet you can see the smoke. Or maybe not, because my fire's burning so clean right now. That's what we're going to talk about in this video, is how to procure firewood and heat a space, whether it's a house, a cottage, cabin, whatever. And there is going to be a controversy and some drama in this video because there are a lot of differences of opinions on the proper way to do this. One person that has what seems to be a difference of opinion between myself and himself is Canadian Prepper. And I know a lot of you guys who watch my channel, one of the big back and forth in the comments is I know a lot of you guys don't like Canadian Prepper, and I really like his channel. I watch his channel all the time, and I think of him as a very friendly acquaintance. I like him and I like his channel. I know a lot of you guys don't. But that doesn't mean that Canadian Prepper and I, agree on everything. We don't have to. It's not required for you to be friendly with people to agree on everything. And one difference of opinion that we kind of have between each other is how to procure firewood. He recently did a video where he's talking about silky saws. I know a lot of you guys will oftentimes joke, oh, he's a silky saw guy. I've never bought a silky saw, and I've thought about it a lot because I have a lot of respect for his views on things, but they're pretty expensive, and I've never pulled the trigger because I just don't think that they're necessary. And I'm going to explain to you in this video why I don't think something like a silky saw is necessary as, a survival item. And it all comes down to how are you really going to be procuring firewood in an emergency situation? So what I want to do is, this is going to be one of those run and gun videos. We're just going to pick up the camera. We're going to walk out through the woods, through the back acreage of my property, and we're going to start collecting some high quality firewood. And you'll see the types of tools that I'm using and the types of tools that I don't need to be using. And you guys can come to your own conclusion as to whether or not it's really critical to have something like either a silky saw or something like a silky saw for collecting firewood. So let's hop up and let's start this video off. As we go down through the woods here, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that there are some trees that I have chopped down here. This tree in particular. But if you're going to be gathering firewood, the idea of chopping down trees is not really required, and you're going to see what I'm going to be talking about here. This is something you can do, and I certainly do use this type of stuff for firewood. Here's another one that I chopped, and I cut it up into little bits, and I used a small chainsaw for this. And a silky saw would be useful for making these kind of cuts, where you chop a tree down and it falls, and then you make slices all over it. And that's what a silky saw would be useful for. But if you are in an emergency situation and you want to get firewood fast, the last kind of wood that you really want to be using is something that was just recently alive. For people who burn with firewood, we call that green wood, and green wood means that it just has a really high moisture content. The type of firewood that you really want is this type of thing right here. This branch fell of its own accord, so it died on the tree, and because it was dead wood, it fell to the ground, and it's just been sitting here. And what's great about this is that it's up off the ground, like by a couple of feet. And this type of wood is going to be really, really good for burning. I'm going to set you guys down on the tripod here. What's great about this is that it is already dry. I mean, it's not perfectly dry. It's not like the type of firewood that I have in my firewood storage drying shed that's like super, super dry. But this is going to be a lot drier than something that was just recently attached to a living tree, because it doesn't have all the moisture flowing up through it. The only moisture in this is what happened to rain on it, but because it's up off the ground like this, it tends to be a little drier. And well, I could pull, if I owned a silky saw, I could pull it out and start chopping up pieces off of this. Or, I don't know 100% whether it's going to work. It doesn't always work, but let's see if this method works. Before we finish up with that, I wanted to show you guys how I do the drying of my firewood once I do procure it. This is my firewood shed that I use specifically for drying. There's nothing else in here other than firewood. You'll notice that it's got two entrances. The entrance that I'm using this year is the one over here on your right. The wood on that side is the oldest wood. So we're eating into that side, and then we're going to proceed off to the wood over on the other side. Next year, what we'll do is, after we finish using all the firewood for this season, is I'll refill the firewood shed from this side, putting in all fresh wood as I go. That will make this side the side that has the wettest wood, the wood that hasn't had the most amount of time to dry yet. So we don't want to go into that entrance next year. The following year, we're going to go through this entrance, and this will be the driest wood. So that's the way that we approach doing our firewood here, is that we have the wood shed, we get two entrances, and we fill it up from one side and then use it from the other, and kind of go back and forth, back and forth. The only other feature that this wood shed has that I think is a little bit unique, at least in terms of other firewood drying sheds that I see when I just drive around here in rural New England, is that you can see it is so high up off the ground. It's up on stilts here, you can see, and that allows for a maximum amount of airflow to get underneath this this pile. I'll show you what the floor looks like in this structure. We're a good 4 feet, maybe even 5 feet up off the ground here, and underneath you can see there's just all these slats. That's all 2x3 dimensional lumber boards, and that allows the air to just flow right up through the pile and really dry this stuff out. Whenever I'm starting a fire, I'm usually starting it by throwing in a couple logs about this size. I throw in a little bit of newspaper, which is really easy to start. I throw in a little bit of cardboard that I just kind of save from deliveries that arrive at the house throughout the year, and that's it. I don't even bother with kindling, because I'm able to get this firewood so dry that just with a little bit of cardboard, it's enough to ignite the firewood, even in these really large log size forms. So if you can get your firewood nice and dry, it can make it really easy to start fires, and you're going to be getting an enormous amount of heat out of that wood, because it's not using any of the energy to drive out any water moisture. Now there's a branch, and 1, 2. If the wood is nice and dry and it's not too thick, this is how you can split this stuff up. And all this stuff is your kindling at the back end here. You want to keep all that, because that's good for starting the fire. So just right there, no tool required at all. I got a nice little bundle that's got kindling in it and some nice little twigs. Now those twigs aren't going to burn all night, but here's some thicker ones right here. There we go. Another piece right here. This is about 1.25 inches in diameter. Let's see, can I snap this on my knee? Yeah, I can still snap those on my knee. Got that, and that. I am making some noise. I know the Canadian prepper oftentimes talks about the quietness of a silky saw being superior to a chainsaw, and that's true. There we go. Okay, we got a little bit more on our pile here. No tools at all, and I've already accomplished all of that. Different branches are going to break differently. Here's this one under here. This is a hemlock branch right here. I can just tell I'm familiar with the bark. So this is a hemlock branch. It's a type of pine tree. It actually has little edible pine needles on it. I know from experience this stuff sometimes it's kind of bendy and it may not snap over my knee. It may though, because it was sitting on the ground. Okay, well I got one snap. This gets a little thicker here though, so I don't know. Yeah, see, it just kind of bends. It's harder to snap this stuff. You get to something like this. I don't think I could snap that with my knee. It's not really long enough. But you can take this, and here's a log right here. This looks like a piece of oak. I'm going to just get rid of this whole thing off to the side. All right, here's a log right here. Just take it and snap it over. It's got a little bit of a bend to it, and I want it so the bend bends downwards, not up. I'm going to swing this down and hit it over this log. If you have the bend facing upwards, there's more of a chance it's going to fling back up in your face. And honestly, there's no guarantee it's not going to fling back up at my face, but it usually doesn't. I'm just going to break it over here, just hit it right in the middle, right over the log. There we go. You can break a lot of wood very easily, especially any kind of pine, by snapping it over stuff. Now, this thing here, this is like the bottom of some kind of a birch tree here. This is the one I was snapping earlier. This is going to be too thick for me to snap over my knee, so I can use a tool for this. What I like using, this is a Nepalese design machete. It's made by Kabar. I've had this one for years. I lost the tip on it at one point trying to use it as like a prying lever. I felt bad about that. I'm going to eventually smooth all that out. But I've had this for a long time. Again, made by Kabar. It's called a kukri machete. It's a Nepalese style. And I use this thing kind of like an axe. And I'm going to do a little chop through here so you can kind of see how it works. But I wouldn't even recommend that this is something that you need to do for reasons that you're going to see when we head down this little trail here. When you're chopping, it's not just straight down like that. You want to bring it in from the side. And what you're doing is you're chopping out little notches. So we come in from this side, and then come in from the other side. And then this side, and then the other side. This side, the other side. And as we go, we're chopping these kind of little things out. So you come in from one side, come in from the other side, and you'll eventually get through it. But I don't even use this when I collect firewood in the woods for like a campfire or anything like that. And the reason is because I don't have to. You're going to see, we're going to go down this trail, and there's going to be plenty of stuff that we can use for firewood that is not going to require all that work. And it's not that much work either, but if you can get it for no work at all, why not do that? All right, so we're floating down here. Here's a tree that just fell of its own accord right here. This would be one that would be pretty easy to cut up. Now, again, you could use a silky saw for this, and that would be a good application for that silky saw. But if you don't own a silky saw, there are plenty of other opportunities for you here. Here's one right here. The great thing about this one here is that, I'm talking about this piece right here, is it doesn't have any bark on it, so there's no bark to protect the moisture on the inside. You got a rock wall right here that I'm going to use, and all I got to do with this thing is just swing it down. I've got a nice sharp edge on this rock wall here. One. Yep. If it doesn't break in one place, just try another angle. There we go. Again, trying to have that curve down so that you don't have the bounce happen. Again, and this one kind of curves like that, so I want this end pointing down. There we go. Gloves are good for this. I'm feeling the roughness of this this cold log in my hand. It's starting to get icy here because this part was touching the ground. There we go. I'm going to stop with that. So we just got all this stuff. Again, not using any kind of a tool whatsoever. There is a tool that I would recommend, though, is if you're going to go out in the woods, and this is a fairly important tool. Again, gloves really would have been a good idea. I kind of ripped up my hands because things got kind of ice on it and everything. Here is a tool that I would say is a really useful tool. It's not the backpack, it's what's in the backpack if you're going to be collecting firewood. It's one of these things. And you know, you don't have to have a store-bought one of these. It's just a firewood carrier, and it makes it really easy. Take this stuff and load it in so you don't have, like, all these bundles of in your arms. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate with you guys today, is just if you're out in the woods and you want to procure firewood, the last thing you want to be doing is cutting things off of trees. There's a number of reasons for that. One, it's like, you're injuring a tree, and I know many of you guys probably don't care about that. But the wood that you get off a fresh living tree is totally as full of water as it possibly can be, and it's not going to burn very well for you. It's going to be hard to start lighting it once you have it in a fire. Let's say you have a raging fire and you put a piece of green wood in there. So much of the energy is going to be driven into just trying to boil off the water. You're not going to get as much heat energy off of it. If you have a chimney leaving your fire, all that moisture is going to be throwing creosote, which is like this kind of a sticky tar-like substance, which can lead to chimney fires up into your chimney. The last thing you want to be doing is burning wood that was just freshly alive. The best stuff that you can gather is the type of things that are, just lying around on the ground already dead. And that's it for the video. I just wanted to share with you guys that even if you don't have something like a silky saw, there are plenty of opportunities where you can collect plenty of firewood in the forest. Now, were there opportunities if I'd had a silky saw where I could have easily chopped through some of those and I could have collected some extra firewood? Yes, and the idea of a silky saw is it's not something that's useless, and it's not something that's stupid. You could definitely use it. But, given that they, cost a fair bit of money, and I know that, money is of a concern to a lot of people, if you get into a situation where you need to survive and you need to get firewood, to heat your house, and you don't have a saw like that, you're going to do fine, because there is just so much debris and forest. Here we go. Here's a whole white pine tree. Now, a lot of this white pine tree, you would need something like a silky saw to collect, but a lot of this stuff, you could totally collect, just by snapping it off just with your hands. There's so many opportunities abounding in the forest. So even if you don't have all the best tools, you're still going to do fine if you know what to look for and you know how to navigate your environment and how to utilize it. And that type of thing comes not from purchasing stuff, but from practice ahead of time. So get out in the woods, try some camping, get yourself experienced in the idea of what it feels like to collect firewood, what type of firewood burns well, what type of firewood doesn't burn well. Because then if you're in a situation where you need to use these skills, you're not having to learn for the first time. That's it, and thanks for watching. Hey YouTube preppers, here's another video that you might enjoy. But before you click on it, I wanted to take a moment to thank all the people you see listed on the screen. They help to support the work that I do here over at patreon.com. If you'd like to join them and have your name added to that list, the link's below.